I am CATHRYN BOZONE, and I am an Atlanta-based artist. I'm from Atlanta, and I've been an artist as long as I can remember. I wanted to make art since I've been in diapers, so still doing it. I'm born and raised in Georgia. I grew up in Marietta and eventually moved down to South Atlanta, but I went to school at University of West Georgia, and once I graduated, I immediately, literally signed the lease the day of my graduation to move into Atlanta to start my artistic career. My mom and my dad are both graphic designers, artists. They both studied art in school, and they met on their first, I think they worked for a company in Atlanta together, and that's how they met. And so I always grew up in a household that was I remember playing with Photoshop 2 on a computer because there was just always art and graphic design going on in my house. So it's just something that I've always been familiar with and always loved. In the past few years, I've been developing my style and my body of work, kind of trying to ask myself, what do I really want to make art about? What do I really want to explore artistically instead of just making pretty pictures? And one thing that I really connected with, especially after lockdown, is nature. I think that's one of those things that kept me from going insane when we were in lockdown, and kind of finding solace in nature and finding life in nature. And I think a lot of reoccurring themes in my work is rebirth or cycles, and I feel like nature really represents that. And so I've really been exploring that with my portraiture and incorporating a lot of nature and florals. I actually do a lot of photography of plants that I grow myself, and so I just have this really personal and intimate connection with plants and animals and growing things, and I really like representing that in my work.
And bugs?
I love bugs. I love bugs. There has been a recurring theme of bugs in my work for a very long time, and I think that I was first drawn to the aesthetic, but I really like how they kind of represent small beauty. I feel like things don't have to be huge and overdone. Nature has so many subtleties in it, and bugs are one of those things we just take for granted that do so much for us and do so much for our ecosystem, and they're beautiful. And so I really like incorporating them into my work and making them kind of larger than life, so that we can kind of take a second, take a breather and think about that. The difference between working with chalk and other mediums is chalk is very specific in how you can handle it. I mean, every medium has its own kind of finicky, thing that you have to figure out, how does this work? How do I want to apply it? And I feel like chalk, since it is so smooth, kind of lends itself to very smooth blends and smooth gradients, not very harsh lines. And so that's where I really started that kind of style of, I want everything to be blended out, because that's what I was doing. I was literally blending chalk on the pavement. And so when I started getting more into painting, because painting really is my passion, I wanted to carry that style over into my painting work. That's what people always ask me when I work in chalk is, oh, aren't you going to be so sad when it rains or when it goes away? And I'm just well, I don't have to carry a canvas home and figure out where to store it, so that makes it easier for me. And also, it's about the experience with the art. It's about the interaction with the art. People really want to hold on to this, and as an artist, it's so important to be able to slash and burn things, because that's how you grow. You can't hold on to things or obsess with things. It's kind of all right, next thing, and how am I going to do it differently? How am I going to change this? And I think that art should just be an experience anyways, instead of people trying to obsessively preserve it and be I want this forever. Just be more mindful. Sorry for yelling into the mic, but just be more mindful and just experience it. Of course, take a picture. Yeah, I think that with the digital age, where art is definitely more fleeting, and I feel that can be a bad thing and that can be a good thing. I feel it makes it last less like it's not lasting as long, so we kind of want more and more and more and sooner, sooner, sooner. But I also like that we can kind of take a picture and move on too. The SOPHIE SCHOLL project really was dear to my heart when I first read about it. I think that being a young woman, I feel like I was just so inspired by her actions and how she approached life. I feel like in a time of turmoil like that, you had to be very definitive in what you believed in, and it was just admirable that she stuck to her guns no matter what. And I think that being able to do a tribute to that and a tribute to her and her creativity and her knowledge was, it was an honor. Her fascination with nature really was another reason why I connected with her, because I feel like you find a love for humanity through nature. I mean, it's life and death. And I feel like when you connect with that, when you're able to connect with things that are bigger than you or the world that is bigger than you, then yeah, you're gonna have that mindset. You are. I chose the quote for the painting because I thought that it represented everything that she stood for. One of the main points that she wanted to make to people is that, you know, like someone has to stand up, someone has to say something, like this is not okay, and I'm willing to compromise my safety to tell that message. And I think that's so important, especially now. I think it's just very timely and inspiring because people are scared now, just like they were back then. And, you know, seeing someone stand up and face their ultimate death very courageously, I mean, it's just incredible, really. One of the reasons I chose the quote that I did is because I really wanted to spark inspiration. I want people to look at it and say, you know, I can do something. I can contribute. I can make a start, really. And I want people to look at it and think that. When I read her story about being a young woman under an authoritarian regime, I just was like, wow. I feel like so many women today can relate to that and see what she did. And she was just so brave. Like, I mean, like some people are saying, you know, she was being kind of reckless, but you kind of have to be reckless when there are high stakes, and putting your message out regardless of the stakes, I think, is what really drew me to her. And I think as a woman working in corporate America and working as an artist, it inspires me to do the same. I mean, it inspires me to not keep my mouth shut and to not be afraid of having a voice and, you know, spreading the message that I believe in. Really believing in her own message and sticking to that. Like, not a lot of people can do that. A lot of people would rather be neutral because it's easier, but doing the scary thing, I mean, I always want to do the scary thing. So I relate to that. I really relate to that. I mean, I got in trouble at work for being a little too harsh. And I'm like, you know, 4'10". My boyfriend says I have Scrappy Doo energy, and like that's how I picture Sophie too. And it's like, yes, that's what we need. The fact that Sophie decided I'm gonna go get an education, and I think that her parents like really supported her on this. Like her father kind of really communicated how he felt about things, and I feel like that really influenced her, and that helped her to go get an education, especially with her brother too. I mean, having educated people around you doing the same things, I think really helped her get to that point. But she kind of carried it through, you know. She was like, I'm gonna do this to the end, and I believe in it. What I learned that I didn't know before upon researching this project is there was a lot of youth, you know, resistance groups that were kind of squashed by Nazis. And, you know, we know that they were terrible, but rereading these stories of them trying to squash like students and like keep them from speaking, keep them from learning, it's just, you really see how much they wanted to control those people and keep them from having their own opinions and ideas. I mean, when you execute a young woman who's still a student for sticking up and having a creative opinion and having something to say, I mean, you're just trying to control everyone. And I think that's what it comes down to, is refusing to be controlled. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast that covered Sophie's story, and they mentioned a lot of other student groups that were anti-Nazi and who stood up against the Nazis and who were also kind of just wiped from the history books. And it makes you think about all the stories that we haven't heard about the people who survived. But also, it just inspires me, like, there were people, actually, they're like, oh, how could this happen? You know, like, no one did anything. There were people doing things. There were. And Sophie was one of them. And I'm glad that we're finally honoring that. If Sophie had kept her mouth shut, she would have likely survived. I mean, I feel like she could have especially pulled the, like, I'm a young, innocent woman card, and she didn't. You know, and she, you know, when you read about what she said before she was executed, it's like she was strong and confident to the end, and I think that's so extremely admirable. I can't even imagine being in a situation like that. That's what's crazy, is I feel like the Nazis just persecuted so intensely and so ruthlessly these people who were nonviolent. I think it just goes to show that you can get things done without being violent, and I just hope that we realize that and start having conversations instead. That is the thing, right? Is that idea is the most powerful, and having a voice and having an idea and being willing to spread it, it has so much power, and they knew that. The Nazis knew that. That's why they burned books. That's why they wanted to keep knowledge from people, is because they knew how dangerous words can be. And I feel like that's why the pamphlets were so awesome, is because these people putting out things that they learned and they believed in, and they were educated, you know, like, there were students that were educated and they were trying to educate other people, and that's power. You know, that's spreading power nonviolently, is helping people realize what's going on and what's happening. These regimes love controlling women because women are amazing and they're insightful and ingenious. I mean, they show that, like, when women get on birth control in other countries, that the society thrives. I mean, like, women can contribute to society in a way that people can't fathom, and that's what's crazy, because they're amazing. Oh yeah, I think that the story of Sophie definitely connects with the history of Atlanta and the civil rights movement in Atlanta, and I think that especially the nonviolent part, and just trying to spread a message in a way that's as clear but as nonviolent as possible is definitely a challenge. I think it connects because these, you know, people who are protesting, people who are trying to spread the word and trying to make a difference, they understand that this is bigger than them. And I feel like that's where the connection is, you know, like, MLK grew up in Atlanta, and he went above and beyond for what he believed in, and so did Sophie, and unfortunately they both paid for it. You know, that's one of the hardest things, is going against the grain, but also when people you know or people who are close to you kind of tell you, like, nah, that's not a good idea, keep on keeping on, is so hard and courageous. Believing in something so much that you're willing to do that is an accomplishment. Most people would rather just kind of put their head in the sand and be like, this is too stressful, I don't want to risk my life, I don't want to risk my family's life. And I feel like when you get desperate like that, and when you really believe in something so much, you're just gonna do whatever you can. I think that right now we're in a time of, like, turmoil and change. I think that the pandemic really put that into action faster, she was silenced, she was oppressed, and I feel like I hope that her story and this painting can inspire other people to kind of see that situation going on right now with minorities, with people of color, with Asian Americans. So yeah, I feel like especially in the South, when we're dealing with, you know, we're still dealing with intense racism. So I feel like it directly correlates for sure. I kind of did a compilation of reference images of actual Sophie, and the actress, I think they did like a movie or a documentary on her and the actress who played her, because there's not a lot of good photos of Sophie, but I did take the garment that she was wearing in one of the pictures and directly put it on the actress who plays her. So it's kind of like a combination of photos, but I don't know if she looks like me. Yeah, well, they say that artists kind of subconsciously paint portraits like to look like them just because, you know, we see ourselves a lot, and so we kind of like subconsciously do that. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Yeah, I definitely did not want to give Sophie a dull color palette. She deserves a bright, showy color palette. I mean, I feel like her words have substance of their own, and like such power that I wanted the color palette to really resemble her and that. Yes, the roses were definitely inspired by the name of the organization that she was a part of, but I just couldn't, I mean, just my style as an artist, I just couldn't leave it white. I wanted there to be more life to it. I didn't want it to be kind of depressing. I wanted it to have more life, more vibrance. I wanted the colors to be bouncing off each other. I wanted there to be a playfulness with it. So I almost wanted it to be iridescent when I painted the roses, because I just wanted it to have more life than just a white rose. I just feel really honored to even be able to work on this project. I mean, I do portraits a lot, and sometimes when I just do a portrait of a random reference, it does feel empty. It does feel kind of hollow. And being able to do a portrait of someone, when I was painting this, I was like, Sophie, please come, the spirit of Sophie, come help me, because I just really wanted this to be a tribute to her and her to be in this painting. And being able to paint someone who's just so awesome and like metal, that it was awesome. It was like, I really felt like I was like being empowered through her and like through her words, so that was really cool. Definitely a privilege. Go Wolves!